I ran in the house and I told Dad, I said, Dad, we're at war. And I said, the Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor.
Next morning, I think all the boys enlisted.
My dad wasn't happy with it. He thought that was not employment for a female. Some of the fellows that worked there asked me if I got paid for being a contortionist.
I was Rosie the Riveter.
On December 7th, 1941, I was in the theater, and all of a sudden I heard a lot of hustle and bustle out in front of the theater and noise. So I thought, well, maybe I should go out there and see what's happening. I thought maybe somebody was fighting or, someone got hurt.
I ran in the house and I told Dad, I said, Dad, we're at war. And I said, the Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor.
Next morning, I think all the boys enlisted from our high school, just about all of them.
Well, I can hear my mother saying, there go my boys. My brother said, I want you and Mother to go tomorrow early to Ford's in Dearborn. And he said they're going to hire the first 100 women to work in the assembly line.
At one time I was working for Hans Wesson, and I heard that they needed help at Douglas.
My cousin took me down to Douglas and got a job down there, and I worked on the B-17 bombers. I was inside the plane. We worked on the where the turret gun was, with the gun that went out the window. That's what I worked on.
I worked at Cessna and I worked at this other plant where we made glider parts. And they had a shop where all those things were made in a jig, and you had to glue those things together. And they made parts that went into wings to hold them together.
I was on an assembly line. What I was to do was to put them in this huge machine, should we say, that was in front of me. And then I would get my arm and bring down this, it looked like a drill. It wasn't a drill. We got a bolt. They told me that the aircraft was for the aircrafts, the planes.
I was very small, and I had to work in the wing of the C-47. So my girlfriend, one time she did the riveting, and the next time I did riveting. We did the bucker and the riveting. So a lot of the time I was a bucker. You hold the bar, and she would rivet from this side, and I was inside the wing and did the bucking on the inside. From there, I went to work on the 826.
I worked on a bench where I filed bearings. And their burrs got in the sides there, and they had to all be filed out, because if they weren't, it would blow the engine. And the engines that we had were the Pratt Whitney.
My dad wasn't happy with it. He thought that was not employment for a female, and he was afraid there would be too many males there. So I told him, I said, the males are in the service. They wouldn't be there,
We got used to our jumpsuits, because we get teased about them too, because of the flaps in the back. Well, I guess we did look funny.
We all wore jeans naturally, We would put on our glasses, and we always had to make sure that our hair was pulled back.
The first day I walked in the building, and all of a sudden something hit me in the rear, and it was one of them big black rubber bands. Boy, somebody had really let me have it. It happened 2 or 3 times, and then finally the boss said, this is going to stop. We're not going to do this. He said, these people are here. And he said, they're in the war effort just like everybody else. They really didn't like us too good at first, but they got over it.
It was dangerous, I would say. We had to wear glasses, those big goggles.
I had to just get in as small as I could in order to get in the wing.
Some of the fellows that worked there asked me if I got paid for being a contortionist. They thought I should.
Yeah, my girlfriend was a real tall redhead, and she'd be up on the jig, and I'd see all that group the boys would be dressed in their camouflage, and they'd be coming down the aisle, and she didn't know it, and I'd I'd stick my head out the window where you put the gun, you know, and I'd be a big whistle, and I'd jump down in the plane, and there she was sitting up there, and they thought it was her. We had a lot of fun.
My mind was on the war all the time, all the time.
They were in the war, and then when those planes would get, you know, crippled, they'd bring them in to be patched up because they had holes in them, and then we'd have to patch them. Just like you would a piece of cloth, you'd cut a square piece of aluminum, and then you'd rivet all around that square piece, and that would be your patch.
And they called them flying coffins, and that was bad. We didn't like that. We didn't like that. I said, no, that's just not a good feeling, you know, they think that plane might crash.
It was exciting, and we were happy to be doing what we were doing. We were helping, and that meant a lot.
Isn't this pretty hot for you, Miss Spillane?
Well, I hear it gets kind of hot around the kitchen stove, too.
I never thought of that.
Yes, and it gets pretty hot out there in the South Pacific.
I was glad I was there. I was always in a hurry to get there.
I felt very proud because everyone working there was doing the same thing for the same purpose. So one went to Iwo Jima, he was the Marine, and one was in the invasion of Normandy. So I had both of those gentlemen killed. They were both killed. And that was very sad.
Well, the two brothers were born on the Chapman Ranch, and there was Dr. Wickett that was a friend of the family. Well, my older brother was a paratrooper. He was wounded in the Battle of the Bulge, and Dr. Wickett was the one that took care of my brother and had him released so that they could bring him closer to home so we could take care of him. My fiance was overseas. He was overseas, and he sent me a telegram that they were coming home, and he got home on October the 27th, 1945, and then we got married November the 11th, 1945, and we were married 59 years.
We knew the war was going to be over because they quit making the planes. Well, they started announcing it, and I lived on Commonwealth right here in Fullerton. Everybody started screaming, run out the doors and everything.
Everybody was celebrating like crazy, kissing everybody. I know a lot of people kissed me, and I kissed them. It was really a thrill, a big thrill when that war was over with.
I was so excited. All of us were. Everybody jumped up and down. Everybody was hugging everybody, whether you knew them or not.
That was a long time ago, but you know, you don't forget the beginning and you don't forget the end.
It was an experience, it really was. And one that I wish that would have never happened, but it did. I went to Arizona to see my granddaughter about 12 years ago, and I'm walking, I don't know if I was going to get my suitcase or going out, and there's this big glassed-in room, and it had doors on it, and there was one couple in there, and I stopped and looked, and I saw all of these engines, and there was a Pratt Whitney one just staring me in the face, and I opened the door, and I ran right up to it, and then I felt kind of foolish because I thought, well, what's the matter with her? But I wanted to touch it. I'm glad that I worked at the Ford aircraft plant. I really am.
That was a wonderful experience for me. I don't think I'll ever have another experience like that in my whole life.